A man has been shot dead, 3 others injured in Nyanga on the Cape Flats amidst the ongoing taxi shutdown in the Western Cape. 4 more buses have also been torched on the N2 highway. That brings the total to 8. Police, law enforcement and traffic services have been deployed to the violence hotspots. And there have been several incidents of public violence there, leading to some road closures. Some taxis also blockaded a section of the N2 as you approach the airport. Thousands of commuters were again stranded as the Santaco shutdown continued after talks with transport authorities were suspended. So the shutdown in the Western Cape continues for a 5th day today. As you've heard, there are talks between Santaco and the city of Cape Town and the Western Cape government didn't seem to go anywhere, deteriorating this weekend. We've got some reports about people being shot and killed, vehicles, including those belonging to the Golden Arrows bus service, being torched. There is a heavy contingent of police personnel in certain areas there. Learners and teachers, we understand, have been prevented from going to school. Goes without saying, thousands of commuters left to fend for themselves. So let's get the latest for you now from Western Cape Minister of Police Oversight and Community Safety, Regan Allen. Regan, good evening to you and welcome. Just to start, we've had different reports around fatalities, but just give us a high-level wrap of the day's developments from your vantage point in terms of protests and damage to property and so on.
Iman, thank you so much for bringing us into this particular difficult conversation. I was on the ground in Nyanga, in Guguletu, parts of the noon, but also on this very specific road that you have mentioned, which is the airport entrance and that entire arterial. I can confirm that as of 10:30 this morning, that particular road was free-flowing. We have also seen that based on the report that I have received, that we have already seen 63 people that have been arrested, 142 matters for criminal investigation has been registered, and we have a deployment of 1,500 members across the South African Police Service, Metro Police, including public order policing, monitoring a number of our hotspot areas to ensure that there is visibility that can be a deterrent for these sporadic incidences that is occurring across our province. It is really saddening, Iman, to consider that it is almost 470,000 learners that were affected. Today, it was also affecting over 17,000 teachers that were unable to get to schools. That's also not even including our nurses, our doctors, our social workers that were unable to get to and from work. But it's an ongoing discussion. And earlier on, I was in a discussion with the National Minister of Transport, together with the Premier and the City of Cape Town representatives and the MEC for mobility, and those discussions are still ongoing. We would ultimately want to see that there is peace, that there is law and order in our province, so that we can ultimately get back to work, so that our people can get from work and bring back peace and quiet.
Right, we'll talk about the commuter provision situation, but how tense is the environment still tonight? And are you anticipating the destruction of more property, such as we've seen against buses and other vehicles?
Iman, we are ready for any eventuality. We are on high alert, considering what has happened on Friday and on Saturday, when certain City of Cape Town premises and facilities were specifically targeted. So we are on high visibility. We are also engaging crime intelligence, but also the City of Cape Town, the information that they are gathering. And just earlier today, man, we were in contact with 17,500 of our Neighborhood Watch members feeding information. That information is analyzed. It is then operationalized so that we can quickly respond to any eventuality. So we will be ready.
I'm very interested in the part where you talk about crime intelligence and other agencies trying to get to the heart of this. We have seen Santaco saying in various places that they are not responsible for violence. It's not their members. What evidence have you been able to ascertain in this moment, based on what you've investigated, that there is a direct link between the taxi industry and these attacks?
Iman, as you have stated, the link, and if we track back to the initial strike action, as soon as that particular strike was mentioned, as soon as that particular strike went was announced, we saw sporadic incidences. We are leaving nothing off the table. We are wanting the South African Police Service to investigate all of those potential matters where there was criminality. It included the killing of a LEAP officer, Iman, that was attacked on Friday in Nyanga. He was 32 years old, and it was R5 semi-automatic weapons that were ultimately used, and 13 bullets were still stuck in that particular LEAP officer vehicle. So we are putting nothing off the table. We are wanting those investigations to conclude, because we have seen as soon as that particular strike action was announced, all these violence and stone throwing, including curbing others from going to and from work, erupted in our province.
Regan, again, sympathies to the family of those who have been injured and those who have lost their lives during the course of these developments and the violent interaction. But the reason it's important to try and get some clarity on the question I've just asked you is because it is something in certain reports that are being attributed to the taxi industry. They're standing back from it, and it's really important for South Africans to understand what we know is happening and whether it's creating a space, possibly even for opportunistic forces to come in and ensure that there's instability in the province.
Warning, actually. It was specifically linked to opportunistic criminals, and we have seen that in the Nyanga and in the Guguletu area, there was opportunistic attempts to loot certain venues within a mall. We have seen that as opportunistic, certain criminals wanting to take a chance. However, all those murders, all those petrol bombs that were thrown directly at City of Cape Town facilities, at our LEAP officer bases, that is being investigated in order to ensure that no stone is unturned. It would be unfortunate of me to make any direct comment to say at this stage, at this early stage, that we can exactly say that there is a link, but I have assured residents here in our province to ultimately say that we want to leave no stone unturned so that those matters can ultimately be investigated. But Iman, I think it's also very important. If Santaco's leadership is saying that they are not condoning violence, it is also a leadership matter. Every sphere of government would have to take leadership in this particular matter, but even the leadership coming from Santaco in terms of their members protesting, not going to work or not rendering a service. So it's definitely how we are wanting to get the province to move forward and to address the concerns.
Do you think you can realistically move forward when the taxi industry in the province, or insofar as those who've had their vehicles impounded and now embarking on this shutdown, do you think that they will come back to the table when they feel targeted? We've heard the Cape Town City of Commerce even asking whether there can be an easing of the route that the city is going in terms of an easing of the zero tolerance approach as an opportunity to ease tensions and provide a way back to talks. How do you see this playing out, Regan?
Iman, to speak quite frankly, the current conversations is around vehicles and taxis that were impounded, and we are looking at the data, specifically the data with regards to where the matter is not as serious as opposed to major offences, where a person does not even have a PDP, drove under the influence of alcohol or was negligent or drunk at the time. So those matters are being discussed, and like I've indicated, we have had an engagement earlier on, and that meeting concluded at 4:30, and we are going back to have these discussions, and that is being led by the MEC, but also the National Minister of Transport is also involved in that regard.
Right.
The Premier was very clear in his assessment that we need to make sure that we bring this violence to a stop.
Well, the signal seems to be cutting out, but this is very important for me to bring in before I let you go, Regan. Thousands, hundreds of thousands of commuters affected. We saw heartbreaking pictures of people walking at night along busy highways just trying to get home. What is the operational strategic plan by the city to provide any alternatives, if possible, for these communities and for those particularly who work in the city centre and have to move around?
Thank you so much for asking that question. We have had engagements with Golden Arrow and My City. I can confirm that all My City major routes are operating, except for the Noon area and in the Hout Bay area. So I can contact, but also the negotiations with Golden Arrow. We have also made additional deployment from law enforcement and the South African Police Service available to make sure that even Golden Arrow buses, if needed, especially in the hotspot areas, to be escorted. So we have contingency plans in that regard, but we definitely know, Iman, when we look at the entire need and the role that minibus taxis play, it is a huge service that has ultimately been brought to a standstill. But those contingency plans and discussions is ongoing, and we are working with Golden Arrow and with all the bus companies here in the Western Cape as well.
We're showing, quickly, showing some pictures there of burnt out buses. Can you ensure commuter safety, given, as you say, they'll be escorted or accompanied?
I can at this particular time confirm that buses will be escorted into our priority areas, but also where there are sporadic incidences, we will make sure that it is quickly attended to so that we can bring calm and stability.